We're gonna, you know what? We're gonna get into a discourse about something where I'm gonna like maybe submit something to you and to the audience about maybe what we can do to be helpful to bridge the gap of some of the tenuous things that are taking place between some of our elder statesmen and certain DJs, radio, media personalities.
Well, you know what? I think that Bagger Jones with the super chat, and we're gonna get into this a little bit more. He said, "Did you guys go to the Nas Wu show last night? It was a lot of stuff going on, man. A lot of stuff going on. Had people that went there, heard it was great, as you know, always, but didn't make it out there. Did you make it out there, Coop? I know my man Chris did. Shout out to Chris. He sent me footage and everything.
The attempt was because I really wanted to take my daughter because I thought about it. It's like, man, this would be great if this was like her first real rap show, but it just wasn't like in the cards.
Thursday's just such a rough day. I had it planned for like a weekend or something, maybe. Like
right, I was thinking like a Saturday.
And
like,
Atlanta,
I mean, because it's Atlanta.
And with Atlanta traffic,
I thought we were going to get some weekend treatment, but maybe they don't get the love down here that warranted it. I know, Ray has a lot of ties down here and has been down here a lot throughout the years, but the rest of them maybe not so much. I mean, no, Nas had a house down here when he and Police was married too.
Yeah.
So no, I mean they're pretty familiar down here. So I don't know what the Thursday thing was about, but I've also seen them all before too. So it was kind of like.
Yeah, I really wanted to go to this one though, but again, at Thursday it was tough. I mean, I don't know if people are in the Atlanta area, how many people in our chat are in the Atlanta area, but getting around here during the week and getting down there to Lakewood is very tough. But anyway, but yeah, some of that discourse that you were talking about and bridging the gaps, we're gonna get to that, but I think a lot of this is something that I think there could be a positive out of this.
Okay.
I really do. I think that there could be a positive with moving forward. People put people onto game a little bit more, and a lot of things like that just haven't been done in previous generations. And as a person who's been through radio and a person who has tried to make it as an artist myself, I mean, it's just, it happened for us 20 years ago. You know what I mean? Like, the fact that there's nobody that's just going to pull you to the side that's been through it and help you through it. All of us have kind of pretty much had to figure our way out through it. And I'll get more detailed in that, but.
No, okay. No. I just wanted to kind of get where you were coming from and going and where we were taking it. Okay.
I mean, let's just be real. Even if we talk about being here in the show that we do and the wonderful fan base that we have amassed, like we're approaching 10,000 subscribers. I think that's awesome. That makes a noise.
Oh, it does?
Yeah. Okay. But we're approaching 10,000 subscribers, which is awesome. And I'm pretty sure there's a lot more people who watch us that haven't hit the subscribe button, right? And even with that 10,000, I'm pretty sure that there are people who are notable individuals in this space or in hip-hop culture who see what we're doing. I'm not asking anybody to come down and, interview with us or holler at us or whatever. But we are in a culture, and we got to be real about this, where people who could just really just tweet out something or even just come in and holler at us, they could give us a boost in the arm overnight. They don't do it. That's the thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, nobody that has reached a level in hip-hop tries to help anybody who is on the come up unless they are contractually obligated to them. That's what the young people see. And that's what we've seen historically. It is what it is. Is that false?
Well, I don't think that you're saying anything false. I think everything has a circumstance and a situation to it, truly. Like, you take our situation and our circumstances, it's like, to everything that you spoke to about what could be given as a boost in the arm is true. But what you're also kind of like not saying, and this is me playing devil's advocate to everything that we've built together, Mike. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Well, we be holding a lot of people accountable for the dumb shit too, and they don't like that because they're not used to that, quite frankly. And so I'm not surprised when we don't get a shot in the arm. No, I'm not surprised when necessarily we don't get a shot in the arm per se, because of, we're I don't hear a lot of people talking the way that we talk and being challenging and thoughtful the way that we are. And so we might be different. And so it might be a little bit more frightening or stand the offish to some in that realm. But the overall motif is the same, though, in terms of how the behavior is gone generationally in hip hop, in terms of the lack of in Upward Bound, Mike. The theme is lifting as we climb. As in I go further up the ladder, I take somebody who's further down the ladder and pull them up the ladder with me. There's no lifting as we climb in hip hop. There's no upward bound.
This is not even just in hip hop. I think it's in entertainment in general. It's some Hollywood type of shit. Because I saw this clip that's making its rounds on the internet where Oprah, and forgive me, I forget the woman's name, played Moesha's mom. You know what I'm talking about? Just won the Academy Award.
Sheryl Lee Ralph.
Yeah, Sheryl Lee Ralph. There's a clip of Oprah running into her somewhere, and Oprah's acting like she just got on or something, screaming and hollering like, "Come on, man!" Like, and Sheryl Lee Ralph's looking at her like, "Really?" You know what I'm saying? But that's what the game is. Once you get validated, and let's just say tomorrow, if we sign to whatever, and this podcast is distributed by whatever, everybody's coming on the show. You know what I'm saying? And I think the other part that is problematic as well, and you even dealt with this personally. We give all these people praise, which is fine because we're talking about the music and we have no obligation to anybody outside of the people. This is about the people, not the individuals. We're not out here trying to kiss ass to get anybody on. But you say one thing that's adverse, and then you got Lupe Fiasco wanting to debate you, right? You know what I'm saying? That's the mentality, and that's the same thing here with this Ak and L thing where, and I'm not even coming down to L. I think what L said was correct. But a lot of the things that was said in that whole conversation didn't hit a nerve until he called Pioneers dusty, right? And if that's what's going to get your antennas up to have a conversation, is that okay? You know what I'm saying? Because we could sit here and praise. No one's going to say anything. But if you go out there and you've seen it yourself and disagree with something strongly, everybody's out. And even in that situation, did he want to come on here and debate you? No. Which is fine. But but again, it speaks to that whole notion where nobody is trying to be a part of anybody else's come up. And honestly, it's just been a mantra from hip hop from the beginning. Unless you're in that person's crew, you're not going to help them come up.
Because the nature of it is, it goes back to one of my themes, Mike, when I say black love is tenuous. Well, this is one of those tenuous love moments. So let's unpack it a little bit. One of the people that was there when I heard the whole black love is tenuous thing was Dr. Vaught. Dr. Vaught said something, and Mike, you understand this because, you're engaged and, or on your way to being married. Do you want to be right or do you want to be married? You feel what I'm saying? And it seems like when people reach a certain sort of acclaim or fame, they want to be right more than they want to be like married to the game. You know what I'm saying? And so when he came for me, it's not like I had a problem with him coming for me. It's like, well, no. Like let's make it fair and let's make it balanced and let's argue about some of the points that I'd like to argue about too. But it's like, oh no, that's not the point. You want to be right. Well, it's like, well, at that point, if you're a grown man and that's your thought process about it, that is fame and stardom getting to you. And at that point, you can have it.
Mad Max with the super chat says, I'm with LL. Akademiks funny, but he was talking out of pocket. He ain't have to say they dusty, and I'm with L. Listen, I agree with that. Let me get through these super chats, and I'll say what I got to say about it, too. Mad Max says, also, I be telling my friends when they say, why you bump LL? I tell them, I just want to respect the past so the future kids don't disrespect my era. It's going to come back, like, full circle. And that's true. And I think, and you know what? I'm glad that a younger person made that point, because this is happening to the generation that didn't do that to the people that came before them. A lot of the research that me personally that I'm coming across now, even Disco King Mario, these are things that we should have learned about from the people who were active in the 80s and 90s when we were growing up. But we didn't. You know
I'm
what I'm
embarrassed.
saying?
No, I'm embarrassed, Mike, that we're not more well versed on it. I consider myself to be ahead,
It's not
like
our
of the
fault.
highest
It's
order.
not our fault. It's not our
Yeah.
fault. It's the people that are complaining now, unfortunately. And again, what's done is done. But I think that there can be a conversation moving forward where this type of stuff doesn't happen again. Because, like I was telling you offline, this ain't about putting people. All right, why would a younger generation feel like certain pioneers are dusty? Because they didn't really, Academic didn't really, mention any names. But let's just say Trixie, right? The first breakdancer.
Mm-hmm.
Why do we not recognize Trixie as that? And if we did recognize him as that, this man could have started a school. This man could have been out here giving all kind of lessons just off of the props, even if it was just a shout out on a record, on a hip hop classic. Ain't nobody asking anybody to come out of pocket, do whatever, whatever. And that's why I brought the analogy of somebody just, and shout out to Jay Skis over there at Drumwork. He reposted when we were talking about him. Shit like that. No one's asking anybody to go out there and put all kind of dough down or whatever. But when Biggie said what he said about, Mr. Magic and Love Buzz Starsky on Juicy, he immortalized their name. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Little shit like that. Those type of things could have put people who were before the industry era of hip hop, it could have put them in position to make a life for themselves for something that they built for you. You know what I mean? And I give LL props for the whole Rock the Bells thing. I love what they're doing over there. I think it's a great thing. And I wish there were more people that are from certain eras and that were very successful in hip hop to do some things like that. It's going to take more than just L, J, Nas, and people like that to do those things.
We're saying a lot, so forgive me. Like I need to catch up to like some of the
No,
thoughts.
it's all good.
While
I'm
you're
glad
saying
the
that.
conversation's being had, And if it
I
took
am
a young person to be somewhat disrespectful to have it, so be it. Whatever's going to get people's attention, right?
correct. So, what would you say, Mike? Let me submit something to you. Is this not like this isn't necessarily this way of thought and teaching? Well, it just doesn't exist only in hip hop when it comes to our people now, does it? Because
No.
when you're saying all this, I think of how many other pieces of life where this dichotomy exists, this mentality of
The game is to
not.
be sold, not told mentality.
I mean, I'll tell you what, like when you said that, Mike, I thought of my father. My father's from Youngstown, Ohio. Like he comes from an era where that's like some true like code type, you know what I'm saying?
Other
Like that's not
communities
even
don't do that. They give game to their youngins. They do. Put them in position.
no, I mean, see, he means it more in the hustler's
Right.
ambition, as far as like when you're out here with the wolves, not as if you like conceal everything in terms of the knowledge. But I mean, what I would submit to you is how much are the economics playing into this? How much is the unknown of what hip hop was playing into this as well? I just want to play devil's advocate to a couple of those things. You know what I mean? Because a lot of it, like LL said, was like, well, you're dealing with guys. It's like, well, how do you want somebody to plan for something 5-10 years down the line? You don't even know. Like Mike, they wouldn't even know if they was gonna be like if they was doing a summer jam, shit, or like a park jam shit, like one summer. They didn't even know if they was gonna be doing it the next summer. You're asking them to have a 5 or 10 year plan. So it's like that's what I mean. Every situation has its circumstances to it, and we got to start like unpacking like situationally what happens with these generations and find where the disconnect is, or find who the disconnect is, because there's usually like an agent zero. You know what agent zero means, like in scientific terms, right?
I know Gilbert Arenas. What does it mean in scientific terms?
I mean, like Agent Zero, like in clinical terms.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when AIDS was considered to be an epidemic, Mike.
Mm.
There was a French pilot named Gatine Dugas, and he was considered to be like patient zero,
Gotcha.
as in he was a flight attendant and he was a very well-known and promiscuous homosexual who internationally had pretty much went to every continent except Antarctica via the airlines in like a 7-year period. And it is thought that he is the one that most possibly bought the transmission of it here to the United States. So everywhere has an origin, but you have to like do your research. And part of the crab in a barrel, or like the not, it's like not telling like a ghetto song. You know what I mean? Like when you don't tell the story and the story gets broken, well, this is where it becomes problematic.
Well, I mean, I did watch, or listen to rather, Academic did like an open letter response to LL on his Spotify. And I listened to that because I wanted to be fair and balanced and listen to all sides of it. And he did say that part of what LL said, because he was breaking down all the 6 minutes and responding to it, he did say that part of what LL said was true. And he said that, that was a very good point. But his thing is more so, he feels like once they did get to that point, other artists in hip hop shouldn't be going through these messed up situations with record labels. And he said in his experience in trying to get into the game just as a hip hop fan, or, in trying to educate himself on just the executive side of things before he, started his platform, he was saying that trying to find information was damn near impossible. Nobody's giving you any information. We got to think about that. Why do artists continue to walk into bad deals? Why do we have decades and decades of artists who have been effed over by the music industry in the same fashion? Why?
Okay, so,
no one's sharing any information.
Let's pause. Information, economics, and education. You see, that's where the problem is lying, where we're not fixing the problem. You see, because there's not the sharing of the information, there is still a lack of education.
Lack of education. All right, that can be very broad. When you say lack of education in this sense, what do you mean?
Because here's what I mean. When you put somebody under economic strife, if they don't have all the information and really understand their value, they're always going to be in a position of settling until they understand the information and become educated on what their value truly is. Period.
Our man with the super chat says, "Peace, Coop. Did you watch the Quantum Leap reboot? And if you did, what did you think about it?"
I have not watched it yet, but I did download the Peacock app last night and plan on watching it sometime this weekend. I think when I looked at it, they had 2 episodes up already.
36 Chambers with the super chat says, "Rock fans treat their veterans like icons. Hip hop treats their veterans like beans or corny." Said beans or corny, and it's a problem for longevity of the culture. It's been like that since day one, though. I mean, I think that it's easy for people to just dump down on the young people, but it started even when Run DMC was like, this is never ever old school, and also with the whole money point that LL made, as far as like other genres and other,
He's right.
Yes, but we gotta separate 2 things, right? It's hip hop culture, and then there's rap music. Rap music is the industry, right? The industry of selling records and what rap became and that became valuable. That's rap music, and I don't think when rap music started to popularize and people were making the money that they were feeding hip hop culture that wasn't quote unquote making the money at the time. You know what I mean? Like rap songs were making the money when it became a rap genre, but the breakdancing wasn't making the money. The graffiti
I
wasn't
get
making.
you.
You know what I'm
I get
saying?
you.
These are two
I get
different
you.
things. So,
Okay.
with that
What
being
you're
said,
hold on.
rap music was all about showing what you got. So it's a little bit different than country. You know what I'm
So
saying? It's a little different.
is that the rap music gets leaned on differently than the other portions of hip hop culture because it's the first one that colonizers and capitalists found that they could make real big money off of.
Exactly. And you know, and from a content standpoint, we got to be honest. From a
Yeah.
content standpoint, rap music talks about money more than any other genre does. So I don't think that's fair to compare rap to John Coltrane. Like when we're talking about nobody asked how much money John Coltrane had. Well, when you go look through all of the diss records in hip hop, do we not talk about money? How much money this person has and how much money the other person doesn't have that you're battling against? It's different.
No.
Come
No,
on
you
now.
want to know what's crazy about it? Is that well, I mean, let's go all the way to the top. Well, that didn't happen with Nas and Jay-Z. That didn't happen with Common and Ice Cube.
It doesn't happen
Like
all
actually,
the time, but it happens. Like we can't
it
sit here
happened.
and act like money is not a piece of content in hip hop. They have whole labels called
So,
Cash
so, so,
Money Records. Come on,
but
man.
Mike, but the economic. That's what I'm saying. The economic strife behind that's deeper than hip hop.
I
Though. Like
understand what
that
you're
problem
saying.
is deeply. That's what I was saying a few minutes ago. That problem right there, when you get to discussing the economical side of it, well, when you're talking about Black people and their economical situation here in America, particularly people who come out of the hip hop community typically, who typically come from an impoverished community more often than not. That's different, and there are so many factors that go into it in the economics of it that don't have necessarily anything to do with the rap industry. There's other type of systemic and institutional racism that's going on that's affecting those economics, that's giving those perspectives and making somebody want it so bad. You
I
get what I'm saying?
understand that, and that's why the term dusty hurts so bad, right? It's not the
Yes, no.
same.
So can we say this right quick? Let me submit something to you again. It's not what you do oftentimes, and I have to learn this myself, and I'm one of the main perpetrators sometimes of this. It's the word that you use. Like I get the point that you're trying to make, but when you use certain words and certain verbiage, there's a certain attachment that comes to certain words, and holding the forefathers of this genre in a light that is so dismal, quite frankly, that it can barely be seen.
It's out of line.
It is out of line, and it's like, so, learn how to articulate your point with your audience in mind a little better.
Well, this is
And
the
I say that
thing.
as somebody that's guilty of it at times.
I agree. And the thing is though, the reality is the reality, no matter how you want to dress it up. It's unfortunate that someone who has made their, career off of hip hop culture can even say that. You know what I'm saying? Or that's even a thought in their mind. That's a problem. I'm more of a person that is thinking like, okay, why is this happening? Right?
Mm-hmm.
We get it. It's real. You know what I'm saying? Like, we sit there and see a lot of the people who did create this thing. They shouldn't be living like this. And my thing is, why? And it's not even, and I disagree with some of the, I agree with the overall sentiment of LL. And like I said, he's doing great work with Rock the Bells. And I'm glad he actually said something too to bring this conversation, forward. But I do disagree with it being about an individual's business acumen as well. That's not what this is. I think once again, if certain people got the individual credit that they deserved, they would be able to live off of that credit alone. You understand what I'm
No.
saying? Like if certain people, if there wasn't this mentality where certain individuals want all the credit for everything and they just didn't splice the credit around as it should be, everybody could eat.
Well, it's like you said when we were talking behind the scenes, and you're like, well, Honey has a dance academy up here because she's the real Honey.
Exactly.
Like not the chick from the movie.
Exactly. Yeah. You there, Coop? You went out for a second. Let me get to some of these super chats. Mad Max with the super chat says, I think Trixie and guys like, oh, you're back. Let me get to some of these super chats real quick. Mad Max says, I think Trixie and guys like that not mentioned because people today care more about artists and specific groups of people who own the money writing out history. LOL, pun intended. I mean, but see again, I think that the artists are the ones with the microphones literally in front of their faces. I wish we could have seen artists shine a little bit more light on those people who paved the way for rappers to be able to get in the studio and make those hit records. Reggie with the super chat says, Mike, Coop, you guys need to give a review of clips of Young Guru on Mad Papa. We saw some of the clips. We were actually going to talk about that last week when with the whole 50 Cent thing. And I think that we just had such an action-packed show we didn't get to it.
Love me.
Right.
You ain't the same when Jay-Z ain't around. Love me.
Mad Max says, I mean, the rock and roll excuse lose me. Rock held their legend so high that the genre is dead now. Similar to baseball and boxing, where you praise the old so much that the new get no love. That's an interesting concept.
I love that. I love that thought, that sentiment.
Mad Max also says, like, rock would still be a thing if they recognize people like Young Thug or Lil Uzi as rock and roll artists. They only call them rappers because they're black. And that's, and the way they're saying the N-word, like Ye said, that's a good point as well. Born King said, there were a lot of songs left out of the show last night. Let My N-Words Live, Fried Chicken, The Monument were all left out. In my opinion, the show was a little underwhelming. However, Busta and Spliff were fire. Okay. 007 says, gentlemen, I'm going to go very deep here. Rap music exemplifies what's wrong with black culture. We don't act like we crossed the Atlantic Ocean together, and it's the field workers versus the house ninjas. Very interesting. Christopher Hogan says, we the only genre that compares songs and rappers instead of letting someone have their own individual greatness. Well, we're the only genre also where people are calling themselves the greatest and the kings of the genre. We're also the only genre where people make songs against each other as well to be on top. So, I mean, can't have it both ways. It's a little bit competitive. It started off in the park where people were just battling each other anyway. These are the origins of it. And to 007's point, I do think that it is a little bit of that in hip hop where it's like, okay, I'm here, you're here, and I got to stay up here. I can't look out for here. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. You're not gonna see a signed artist that's at a certain level actually put on an independent artist without there being any contracts involved. We see it. I mean, like, I remember seeing Soulja Boy. We all know Soulja Boy. He was independent, nobody's fucking with him, right? He goes out there and signs to, I think it was Virgin he signed to most recently. All of a sudden, you see him and Puffy at a party together now. That's the stuff I'm talking about.
Crazy.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we see it. It's real. Like, these artists that are on, or quote unquote on, or major label artists, they don't go out here and show love to the independent artists that are out there doing their thing, at least not publicly. And in this era, all you have to do is post somebody and tag somebody. That's it.
There will be no acknowledgement until somebody who is worth acknowledging picks you up.
Exactly. Until you're contractually obligated to somebody.
See, now here's the thing about it. And here's where hip hop has a problem fundamentally, I feel like, from the MC or just the musical side of it. I think the real problem is what happened with the 80s MCs that came to prominence is that they were still competitive with those guys that they looked up to because the money wasn't world life changing, but for a select few. You feel what I'm saying? Like, everybody ain't living like LL. Like, how many cats is living like LL that came out in '85, Mike?
I mean, he's
how many
a one
dudes
of
is
one.
even living like? How many dudes is even living like Kane and Rakim and KRS are right now? You feel me?
No, that's real. And see,
That's
LL is such an anomaly. Like, I think it's so great that he is doing Rock the Bells because he is the one to do it. He's LL Cool J. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Cool J.
he's
Yeah,
the
you're damn right. It
ambassador.
makes sense.
Yeah, he's the
Makes sense
ambassador
more
of
than
that.
anything else.
Not only is he like, and you know, you and I debate this, and you say Snoop, and I say L. Not only is he hip hop's first superstar, solo superstar, but he's the most successful in his era even now. And I mean, just
Correct.
overall. And it's a beautiful thing to see. And I'm glad that he's the one doing this. And I'm glad he's the one to speak up on this.
It was always designed that way, though,
Yeah.
Mike. It was always kind of built out that way. Even if he wasn't considered to be the best then, he was the most successful one then.
Yeah. And they all were touring together back then, you know, Fresh Fest and all that stuff. But
L was the man, though. Like,
for me, and I think you're saying the 80s, but for me, the disconnect kind of came in the 90s when everybody was like doing their own thing. And you didn't really see a lot of the guys that were taking hip hop to astronomical levels on a commercial level and just selling records actually reach back and work with artists from the 80s like that. It would happen every now and then, but it didn't happen as much as it should have. You know what I mean?
So here's the thing about it, and this is where we do disagree with that. When I listen to Fast Life with Cool G Rap and Nas, it's like, well, that's literally, you understand? That's Nas's like first feature off of Illmatic that he did.
Yeah.
Like, when he's got the hottest buzz, he gave Cool G Rap some heat first. When Rakim was coming back around, when Mobb Deep was at their peak and running the streets in New York, Mike, they did Hoodlum with Rakim. The Saga Begins, which I feel like is his last, like Rakim's last truly like greatest hit song, that starts off with the sample from like Prodigy from The Saga Begins. That's from Hell on Earth. You get what I'm saying? It's like,
this is the thing. And I hear what you're saying.
He like, oh, Rakim want to use my shit? It's like, yeah, of course Rakim want to. Yeah, can Rakim use your shit, Pete? Pete Rock want to. Of course he can. He probably ain't even. Yeah, of course.
That happened.
He was up, hit P up.
That
Steve
happened.
Rifkin was cool with it.
But Jay was on Show and Prove, right? And so was Old Dirty. And Biggie was on a Kane record. When Big, Jay, and even, you know, Nas and Deep Mob, and I know Mob worked, I mean, Prodigy and Cool G Rap, they got a lot of work together, right? But it's like those guys didn't get on, I mean, we didn't get Kane on a Biggie album.
But listen, what I'm trying to say.
We didn't get Kane on a Jay album. We never did.
But Mike, what I'm trying to tell you is that had more to do with the mentality of the 80s guys than it did
and
the 90s guys. That's why I'm trying to tell you. It didn't happen because of the 80s guys, not the 90s guys. It's like they kind of shunned the era before them a little bit, and they kind of stiffed on, like, outside of Cool G Rap. Yeah, because they've talked about it. Like, they've all just now, over the years of touring together, the last like 5 to 10 years, have gotten close now because it wasn't cool to be close then. That's how they were brought up. They've all talked about that. It's like, no, there ain't no records of us together, you know, because like it wasn't cool to do records together. Like Kane and G Rap even having what, they got like 3 tracks together, like prior to like in their prime, like Juice Crew era time. It's only like 3 records together because like it was a thing. It's like, oh, y'all really gonna record together? It's like, you know, he's really a Brooklyn nigga. What he doing with the Juice Crew? Like that, there was always that. KRS-One never fucked with anybody outside of the Bronx, Mike.
Nicky
like
P
on
with
some
the
music shit.
Nicky P with the super chat says, rap is such a cutthroat game. One mishap and you can instantly lose a stream you had. I'm sorry, any steam you had, excuse me. You're instantly clowned after one bad song or one bad album. It's a tenuous thing. But again, with that out there, that's all the more reason to unify, right? And I used to love when they would do self-destructions and, you know, what's the Heal Yourself. and all in the same gang. But it seems like those records were only coming together on some after school special type of stuff. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Um,
Wasn't genuine.
I mean, I didn't want to say it like that, but yeah, I feel you. I think that all that being said, though, I
Not
think
said
that why
records are great, but it's just not.
a lot of people ended up in this situation where, the current generation would have a prominent personality in their midst that feels that some of the pioneers are dusty. That happened because those people didn't get the proper props they deserved while
See,
they
this
were
is
able to get them. You know what I mean? Because once a generation passes, because who's gonna know? Who's gonna know Trixie and King Mario after 80, 85 if people aren't saying their names? You know what I
well,
mean?
you see, there's a way to spark this conversation without using the word dusty too.
Is
Though this is
there?
what I'm saying.
Is there?
Yes,
Because you
yes.
saw yourself. You couldn't get a debate with Lupe until you said something that he deemed disrespectful. You can
No,
say all
listen.
the regular discourse you want, but no one's going to respond, unfortunately. They're only going to respond to the negative.
No, no, no. I'm not talking about the response to the negative.
Yeah.
I'm saying there's a different way to frame the negative. It's like, you see, he took issue with me bringing up Shakespeare as it being his final boss, like on some writing shit. And I'm thinking of that as a black man from the west side of Chicago. And literally, Toni Morrison is from a small town in Ohio, which is one state over. And I'm pretty sure you're familiar with her writing. And it's more modern, it's more relevant, and relative. You get what I'm saying?
But
There's so many things.
Coop, if you would have said it like that, you wouldn't even have no discussion with them, right? It wouldn't even happen. You were a lot more animated when you said those things, and the animation is what got the response, unfortunately. That's
He
just
thought I was racist, though. I'm racist.
But again,
So
it
it's like
was
he's looking to shock
your
value that when he called me
energy.
racist.
It was your energy that got that. And again, I think
I get what you're
you know
saying.
what I'm saying? If
No,
he
I do
never
get
would
what
have
you're
even
saying.
used the word dusty, LL would have never even responded to the full conversation that needed to
Right,
be
right.
had in the
Okay, so
first place.
well, let me ask you something, Mike. Okay, so let me ask you something. If he would have used downtrodden instead of dusty, are we having this conversation?
Nope, at all. Nope.
Do you
Unfortunately,
think him using the word dusty was intentional?
he said it was.
Okay, so let's back up. Well, that's the difference between he and I, because other people spoke to me on Twitter, like Nas the Goat and Dumb It Down came to me, like on Twitter on the inbox, and was like, "Well, it wasn't really what you said, Coop. It was that your energy wasn't right."
Exactly.
Right. Hold on, but listen to what I told them. That wasn't my intention, so I apologize.
Yeah.
See, if he's intending to say it disrespectfully in that tone, in that way, then that's totally different. And that is wrong, because there's a better way to frame that, to have this discourse happen in a healthier format where it's not as tenuous.
Well,
It
he
always
said
has
he's
to be
willing.
tenuous with us. It can't never happen organically. It has to happen tenuously.
He said he's willing to have not willing, he's welcoming a conversation with LL Cool J about the topic. And I mean, I hope he takes it, actually. I think
You don't want to
it's a
do that, I don't think.
conversation. Huh?
You don't want to do that, I don't think. I mean, you're talking
I think
to
it's a
L.
conversation that needs to happen. You know what I'm
I
saying?
mean, I feel you, but it's like you trying to talk to LL about hip hop and like what it means, like to somebody that's from like farmers that like first album came out in 1985. It's like you really can't tell LL anything.
Well, he's
at all.
not trying to
You can
tell him
listen.
anything. I think
You
he's
can
trying to have
give him your thoughts, but you really need to be listening.
I think he's trying to have a conversation about, just artists artists doing better and communicating information to the people who are younger than them. And I think that is a conversation that needs to be had. I don't think that people should be too proud in that sense, because I'm going to tell you this, man, like the people that were older than us, I don't know about you, they ain't tell us shit. Really. I mean, when it comes to getting in this game, everything that we're doing right here, trial and error. And you know what I mean? If it was people who were at a certain point who were willing to give up information, there's a lot of things that I wouldn't have went through that I had to go through because nobody told us anything. And that's just real. I found out things a lot all the time, just, in journalism or whatever. I'm like, damn, if I would have known this, I would have done this. There are people who knew that shit. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And that's the problem. And I can understand Akademiks' frustration with that, because that's real. We are, and a lot of those people are in those situations, unfortunately, because of lack of dissemination of information. Because let's just be real. Certain people got on and they just went about their way.
No, you and I have even talked about going to the open mics down here in Atlanta, Georgia, and seeing, your competition hanging out with the judges, like smoking and drinking before the competition. And you're like, oh, well, all right, I'm done here tonight.
I'm going to tell a quick story. Like, for people who watch the show, they know I interned in radio, way back in the day. But my whole plan was, I saw what Luda did. I was like, well, sure, let me go here, get my stuff on, and get on, right? So I'm sitting here interning in radio and thinking that, niggas get their music played. Everybody's telling me to go talk to another person, that bullshit, right? And when I got to the final boss, if you will, he gives me some BS about, well, I don't really pick what gets played. And that's why I really appreciate the fact that...
They all say that.
You're right. I really appreciate the fact that Akademiks and Ebro are having a conversation right now on Twitter as we speak about similar things, right? Because Ebro is program director over Apple Music at this point, I believe. But anyway... So yeah, this person, the big boss, tells me...
You better not be the one that stole the Pusha T idea, Mike.
I don't know, who knows? But anyway, it's like, yo, I don't really pick what's on the radio. I hear it from the streets and blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, I'm even more... As a young person, I'm even more confused. Like, are you serious? You telling me that you pick what's on the radio by you walking in McDonald's and hearing a record bumping from somebody's car? That's what he told me. You know what I'm saying?
But what streets?
Exactly. Any street, vague stuff, right? And shout out to DJ Jelly. He actually gave me what the prices were. And I'm like, oh.
Hold on.
Now, and I'm like, I really literally wasted a year of my time when somebody could have just told me there's a price for this stuff.
Mike, you know this right now. There's music literally coming out of a different zone in this city alone that sounds different than the city in the next zone if you go to the biggest local club where the artist is known and their crew is known at. Like, every time I go somewhere with somebody and I end up somewhere and it's somebody, I'm like, who is this? I'm like, what is this? They're like, oh, Coop, you ain't up on this? I thought you was according to hip-hop, nigga. And like, every time. This is in the city that we live in, Mike. You feel what I'm saying? So I don't want to hear you got your ear to the streets and playing it for the... You don't.
So you're telling me the program director of Atlanta's #1 hip-hop station at the time is walking up to some kids in a car asking them what song they're playing through their speakers. Get out of here, man. Marquez Davis with the super chat says, Mike, that's a good point. I do remember Puff saying Big did not record that much because he did not want to overdo it. He said Big wanted every verse to be memorable. And I think he accomplished that too. Some more super chats. 007 says, Academic wild though. This next generation has a lack of respect from what I've observed. This is a prime example of why LL should go boost his platform. It's got to be off love and respect on the strength, not clickbait. And I got that from Akademiks' response. It didn't sound like a clickbaitish thing. It sounded like he really wanted to have a conversation. And again, this open dialogue is something that I feel like, and I'm not talking about L, but I think that when people reach a certain level in hip hop or just entertainment in general, they're not going to have those conversations with people who aren't on that quote unquote level. And I think that barrier needs to be crossed. And you said something earlier about bridging that gap. Until people bridge that gap, none of that's going to happen. You know why young people fuck with Kanye? He shows love. They can say whatever they want about Ye, but the young people respect Ye. You don't ever hear young people saying the stuff about Ye that the older generation says. They respect him.
I mean, I think you can say that about a few different guys that are even older than Ye that have been good about maintaining relationships and their statuses. See, part of what comes with that.
But I'm talking about somebody who is as
No, see,
polarizing as Ye. Nobody's polarizing as him.
No. Listen to what I'm saying, though. That's different when you bring up Ye, because Ye can reach out to them and be like, hey, I want you to rhyme over this beat that I did that I'm putting on my album. It's like, hold on, I get to rhyme to a Kanye track on Kanye's album. Well, Mike, when they were 9 years old, that like My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy was coming out. You feel what I'm saying?
I feel you, but I think that the respect, I don't know, Snoop's another one like that, right? Like Snoop really
Snoop has
shows
it like that.
love to the younger generation. He always has. I love when Snoop was doing GGN. That was one of my inspirations to kind of do what we're doing here. He would bring on young cats that were on the come up that didn't have deals. I remember seeing Nipsey on there early. Like Snoop shows love, and young people respect him for it.
So let's have a real actual conversation, and this is what I mean. The 90s guys are different. If you go look at most of your icons, well, they all have done a great job about helping out and doing records with and for the newer generation.
LL's one of those.
Hold on, LL, Busta Rhymes, Nas, Jay. That's what I'm saying. Snoop, Wayne, because Wayne belongs in that category now. No, all those guys have done a great job about ingratiating themselves in different ways. Like they pop up. You know who's going into that category as well, whether people like it or not? Future's getting to that point.
Drake,
no, Future. Yeah, Drake's getting to that point too. It's like, oh, you're still popping up on other people's stuff. Well, that's different. That's what I'm saying. Is like, Mike, I mean, as much as we love like Rakim and like love KRS-One, we ain't hear them popping up on nobody's albums. Like, you know what I mean? Like the way that Nas will pop up and do something for Wayne. No, the way that Nas and Jay will pop up and do something for Wayne on the Carter 3 and 4 respectively. Like Mr. Carter for Jay, and then that Carter interlude. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, no, like Rakim and KRS-One don't do that for guys like Wayne. Nas and Jay did that for Wayne. You feel what I'm saying? So they don't mind it as much. But part of why they don't mind it as much, I'll never forget, Nas was talking about in the article he did one time about him and Big was talking about, they didn't want to end up fucked up in the pocket like the predecessors. Because like I told you, the way Kane and Rakim and KRS are living is not the way most of these dudes is living. The way LL is living is a far, far cry. You feel me?
I think those are kind of different things. I think that the fact that
you had to be the best to live a certain way, Mike.
They set the foundation though, and the thing is, like, Charles Barkley's not gonna get paid what Klay Thompson's getting paid. Like there's guys out here that couldn't hold a candle to Charles Barkley as a player. And that's just, the evolution of economics, the game, and, just the industry in general. So that's just, it is what it is. I don't take any kind of issue with that.
Right now. If Charles Barkley were playing right now, he would be the best power forward in this league right now by far.
Yeah, and he didn't get paid got paid like, somebody coming off the bench would today.
But that was big money then.
Yeah. And I mean, that just is what it is. And like you said,
that's how inflation works. Exactly. That's what I mean. That's the economics of it coming into play. And that's why, you kind of got to be wise.
But even with that being said, not to interrupt you, but what Rakim, Kane, and KRS were making back then was incredible for rappers at that time. You know what I mean? So
correct.
I don't really take issue with any of that. I just think that certain people's names who did a lot of things to build this foundation, I think their names should live on. And I think that their names should have rang so much that they should have been able to make careers off of the props and the foundation that they created. I would have even liked if LL in that spiel gave props to some of those individuals. I know when Russell Simmons made his comment, he tagged some people. And again, Sha LaRock was one of the people that he tagged, the first female MC from Funky 4+1. Again, growing up, her name wasn't spoken of as it should have been, as much as it should have been. You know what I mean? See, now they're starting to pick up the pieces and give people props that should have been given 20, 30 years ago, really.
So look, we have the same characters though. So it's like, remember, I'm bringing up Nas. The first feature he's doing after Illmatic is Cool G Rap, Fast Life. Well, this is Nas on KD1. I was just thinking, I was like, isn't Brucey B on KD1? He is the definition.
Mm-hmm.
You see, it's the people who care that keep it alive. And so what you're speaking to is something that's nuanced. There's just not enough people that care.
That's
right?
just the fact. And the people, and like you said, the people that care are the ones that are responding to this stuff.
Correct.
And that's the problem.
And they're not responding with like what they're saying. They're responding in the fact that it's like, well, hold on. When I say Bridging the Gap, well, guess who has a song that's called what?
Bridging the Gap, yeah. They care.
Ooh, right.
Yeah.
And so you can see who's actually concerned with Bridging the Gap. That's why I was telling you, Fat Joe's a culture piece. It's like, no, you hear Fat Joe doing an interlude on KRS-One's album. That's important. That's helping bridge the gap. That's why I was telling you Fat Joe's important in different ways. Because it's like, well, he's one of the few guys that KRS was even fucking with. You know what I'm saying? And
I think we kind of stand on two different, points on that. Again, I think that Fat Joe is important, but, Peter Parks with the super chat says, every generation has a responsibility to pay it forward. Great show, guys. I agree with that. And let's just be 100%. You have to pay it forward in the moment. And there's a generation, there's an era that dropped the ball with that. And that's okay. There's a lot of things that happen where we drop the ball. Acknowledge that. And like you said, unfortunately, the only people that are really speaking are the people that care that much. I mean, it is what it is. Like, I love Bone Thugs and Harmony, right? I love Bone. And I remember when the whole thing with the Migos and all that went back and forth. And they were talking about, I guess they felt like Migos were disrespecting them. And I'm paraphrasing this, so nobody kill me, right? I think the overall thing was Migos saying that they were the best group in the world, right? Or best group ever. As they should feel. I mean, they were on their run. What are they supposed to say, right?
Every artist is supposed to feel that way.
Exactly. And so the offense was like, well, what about us? And I'm like, I love Bone. I actually memorized their lyrics back and forth. I don't remember them, really giving any props to anybody before them outside of NWA. And that's because Easy put them on. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just is what it is. When you're young, you're on your roll, you're on your flow, you focused. You're not thinking about everything. And so you can drop the ball. And I think what happens is when artists get older, they start to feel that. And they're like, yo, where my props at? Everybody should have been paying it forward when they could have.
Right. When you was on top, were you doing the same thing?
Yeah, and we could see by the collaborations in people's primes what was going on.
Well, no, Mike, I truly do believe what goes around comes around. That's why I brought up. It's like, well, look at your icons. Look at all the icons that are walking around. Well, the biggest icons are actually the ones that have paid it forward the most.
You're right.
Yeah.
Eric Terrell with the super chat says DJ Akademiks stated the HipHop Pioneers he sees are dusty. They created nothing disrespectful and intentional. He did say he questioned, well, he said it like this, where he was saying, did you really create hip hop? I can't tell you, dusty type of thing. And I'm paraphrasing that too. But again, the fact that someone could even feel that way is a problem. Nobody who had anything to do with the foundation of this, and we're talking about a genre that's going to, or a culture that on paper is going to be 50 next year. These people are old enough and successful enough, collectively, when nobody who had anything to do with the origins of this should be even viewed in such a manner. You know what I'm saying? They should be held high. And I ain't even talking about by the Grammys or the Academy Awards, but just by the people that have been successful in this culture.
Do you remember, Mike, when this pandemic happened, do you remember what one of our first shows was about that I asked you that I thought we needed to talk about because of the pandemic?
What was that?
Does hip-hop need a union? Remember when I was asking you, I was like, we need a union. I said, we need a union to take care of our elder statesmen, just like the NFL.
Well, Swiss was talking about doing that, remember? I think that's right around that time where Swiss was talking about doing that. I don't know what happened to that talk.
Okay, I'm talking about somebody who cares about making it happen. That's why I was talking about it. He's saying it for notoriety and for publicity. I actually give a damn. It's the difference between the two. It's nothing personal. It's just a fact of the matter. But I was forging the conversation about conversations like this because, you know, if somebody were to pick up a check or pick up their taxes from the relative states from the year and be like, hey, what's that tax right there? Be like, oh, yeah, that's part of the hip hop union that you're part of. You had to pay $600 in the state of Indiana this year. You did 2 shows here, and part of your contribution to the hip hop union in this state is this, you know, and they can set it, you know, because it's different. It can work differently. But hip hop needs that because it's like we need to be taking care of our elder statesmen, and trust me. And I said it then when we did that earlier show. I don't know. You can go try to find it in the archives. I was like, oh, take some of the money out of that in the union and put it away. I was like, oh, they'll watch, they'll pay attention more, they'll care more about that more. And then they'll understand also, too, that could be you one day that needs that.
What are the elements of hip hop?
No, I don't think they really understand. Some of these people need this.
Of course they do. What are the elements of hip hop, Coop? MCing, b-boying, graffiti, and DJing, right? So anybody who had anything to do with the origins were participating in one of those 4 things. And I know people will say beatboxing, knowledge, whatever. That's, you know, the core of those 4. You have art schools or art classes or anything that connects with graffiti, right? You have dance studios, like you said with Honey, with Rocksteady Crew, teaching kids the art. Those 2 things alone, for the people who started this, I'm sure they still have a love for those, you know, 2 elements, right?
Of course.
What's stopping hip hop collectively, for the people who care, to create those types of epicenters with those people who were the creators at the head to flourish from? Not saying they got to be out there 60 years old breakdancing, but they can come out there and talk to the kids and have other, you know, understudies under that on some sensei type of shit. What's stopping something like that from being what it is? And DJing as well, because a lot of people want to know how to do that.
I mean, to quote Pusha T, you talking about people coaching from the side of the ball court.
Exactly. Right. Like what?
No.
Why hasn't that happened?
Mike. Well, what I would submit to you is that well, if not them, why not us? If somebody doesn't do it before us, let's continue to do what we're doing and put ourselves in positions to be the one to do it. Because that's the way that I'm trained to think. It's like, I don't want to talk about these motherfuckers if they're not interested in it.
Well, that's why we're here in the first place. That's why According to Hip Hop was built in the first place. Because I realized that the politics of radio and all that shit wasn't shit, and I wanted to create my own. So, you know, it's like, look, let's create this thing and get right to the people and have these type of conversations with the people and do right by this thing.
No, I told you, Mike, I came to you because I was looking for like a record company A&R position. It's like I had a college degree. I'm like versed in music. I have a portfolio, a writing portfolio and a music portfolio. I'm super personable, and it's like they're like A&R. I'm like, oh, get the fuck out of here. What do you mean? What you're asking me? What an A&R? Like, get me out. It's like, who the fuck is this answering the phone? Who is this sending me this email? Like, what's going on? What's happened to the business? What's happened to the culture? Does the culture even matter anymore?
Ohio K with the super chat says, long live the idols. May they never be your rivals. Definitely. And we need to hold people up, man. And it's Eric Terrell with the super chat says, most hip-hop fans these days are stuck in the 90s and act like Jay-Z and Nas are the only people to pick up the mic. It's interesting. Why is that, I wonder?
Okay, so I want to submit a last thought to you.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think we should actually get into some music because we've been on this for about an hour, which I think is more than appropriate. Yeah. But I also think, you know, it is Friday and we have a fuck ton of music to get to be quite frank. When I was hearing just all of this back and forth and the discourse between everybody involved and the stuff that you were telling me and everything, and even our pregame conversation, Mike, I thought we need an honor roll call. Like, we have 3 different shows during one of our shows, preferably the YouTube show right now because it has the biggest following. maybe we just need to take about 2 to 3 minutes and really like take some time and talk about and honor a pioneer, a forefather, somebody important to the culture, and really highlight a contribution, because really that's what Rock the Bells Radio that LL doing is about. It's about really showing love to the people and immortalizing them the way they deserve to be immortalized. And really what you're speaking to is you're like, well, what LL is doing is proper, but the problem is there are not enough people doing it. And it's like, well, my thought to that is it's like, well, I always want to be part of the solution. And so we can be part of the solution by journalistically, like just uncovering and talking about more people, like even the stuff that you were saying about Cornbread, Mike, he needs to be one of the first people that we would document, I would think, if we were to do this.
And for the people in the chat that are saying, talking about the Hip Hop Museum, I'm in constant communication with the people who are, doing the Hip Hop Museum and Hall of Fame, and we're definitely going to shine a light on that as soon as everything's complete. You want
to know what's crazy, Mike? Mm-hmm. You've been talking to them and dealing with them before, like we've been doing the podcast. I remember when you were talking to them when I was still writing articles, and you were like, hey, I hooked up with this cool people. Like, I think KRS One's plugged to them. They're like doing a Hip Hop Hall of Fame museum. I'm like, oh, that's cool. I was like, yeah, let's stay in contact.
Yeah.
That was before we even like started going online or viral or anything.
Yeah, these things take time, but it's actually being built. It's actually two being built, which is great. And the more the merrier. And I just think that, again, it's unfortunate that I'm only 40 years old, and I say only because this thing runs, 50, 60 years deep. Mm-hmm. It's like a lot of the information gets murky because, information wasn't properly passed down from generation to generation. And we're not even talking about a long time, man. We're talking about literally 50 years. Like, so a lot of people's names get left out and a lot of people's accomplishments get left out. And I still hear about new people every day. I mean, yeah, like you said, Cornbread, I heard about Cornbread maybe like a year or two ago, which is a shame. And it's not our fault. It just never was translated to us.
Right. So let me bring that back to you, and then we can move forward. And this is where we've really failed. You know where Toni Morrison's Beloved comes from, right?
Remind the audience.
When she was the publisher when she became the first Black woman of a publishing house in New York, one of the books that she published was called The Little Black Book, was a bunch of slave stories that had been passed down.
Right.
Beloved is a true story of a slave, of a woman who would have rather have murdered her children than subject them back to slavery because she was fleeing. Now, think about Toni Morrison uncovering that story, I believe, via 1971, 72. And the fact that the story had already been alive and well written and translated for about at least 70 years, probably, Mike, I believe, if memory serves. And think about the fact that we didn't see the movie or the book till about 20, 25 years later after that fact. So we're talking about a story that's about 100 years old being translated. And what I would say to you is that part of why she's so important is because, she does shit like that, because look what's happening within our own culture in a much shorter time span about what we're fucking forgetting. That's a slave story being translated in the 70s, made for book in the early 90s, made for film in the mid and late 90s.
And I don't want anything to get lost in translation. I clearly don't agree with, DJ Akademiks' delivery in this, and I don't agree with our pioneers being disrespected. But I will say this. If it takes somebody from a younger generation to say something to piss you off, to do right, go at it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. If that's what it's going to take for certain people to get certain people right, and I ain't talking about LL because, again, he's stepping up doing a whole lot. But if that's what it takes to make sure that our pioneers aren't out here looking like that for the youth, I'm with it.
No, I feel you. No, I feel you. Well, you want to know what? That's why youth are the insiders of change.
Yeah.
Because they
They don't
challenge
give a fuck.
and they question things.
Yeah.
And just understand, no. You can challenge, you can question. respect is still always supposed to be on the table first and foremost. You know what I mean? And that's earned, not given. So,
exactly.
so the younger need not approach the elder disrespectfully using words like dusty, though.
But you said a key word there. Elder. What's an elder supposed to do? Elder's supposed to give game. And when you ain't doing that, you're just old.
I think LL just gave a lot of game.
He
though.
did.
That's what I'm saying.
No, he did. He's an elder.
He handled it the way an elder's supposed to handle it.
LL's clearly an elder. But not all of older people are elders.
Oh, right. Now, you're talking about just the overall behavior.
Yeah.
Well, quite frankly, Mike, hip-hop can be like Never Never Land, like with Peter Pan and the Lost Boys and shit, and we got like a lot of growing up to do.
Yeah. Mad Max with the super chat says, we have to pay it forward, but older generation have to pay it back too. I told old head Chef G, he said, I told old heads that Chef G is what Big would be today. They looked at me like I was spewing blasphemy to Christ's face himself. Let's see. Edit Projects with the super chat says, please pay Nonchalant People Time music video featuring KRS-One. I shot it. That's what's up. We will. Appreciate the super chat. Appreciate you checking in with us too, man. That's good shit. And congratulations on the video completion. Eric Terrell with the super chat says, for example, Teddy Riley produced hits as a teenager for Dougie Fresh, Big Daddy Kane, Heavy D, and Kool Moe Dee. And he's looked at as a legendary hip-hop producer, but an R&B guy. He produced the show. Definitely.